So we are here with Lori and Eric. We're right in East Palestine. Many of you might have seen Eric before on the channel. He's done some interviews with Jordan. This is Lori's first time on Status Coup.
Yes,
so thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Obviously, lots of folks have had all sorts of different health effects from all of this, whether it be from being in your home, being around it in town, being around it at work. Have either of you experienced some of these things? What personal experience?
The metal taste, the burning eyes, the sore throat, blood in my nose. It feels like water in my ears. We actually was waiting for our test results to come back, so we went down to Florida because they took our foster kids out, so it was just me and her. We went down to Florida. The second day I was down there, it was like a detox. I was so sick. I was shaking, shivering. It was bad. Then when we returned from Florida, it took about 2 days for me to get better down there. When I got back, as soon as we got back into this house, within an hour, the splitting headaches. That's the biggest thing that I knew something was wrong, because I've never had a headache in my life. Like, never. And these headaches, if I leave town to go to Lisbon, Colmiana, whatever, and I come back in, for the first hour, I'll get the headaches. And I think that, people are not having some of the symptoms. Like, her skin is, she has a problem with the skin. I worked around cement and stuff my whole life, to lie. I don't even get poison ivy. But the fact is that people get immune. I think they're getting immune. If you're here long enough, some of these symptoms, you're getting used to it. It's like, anything in this world, you become used to it. My mother comes back into this town and she gets sicker than a dog.
I had chemical bronchitis, diagnosed chemical bronchitis.
And this was before they quit doing putting the chemical in front, because as soon as we started having these symptoms, we went and got checked. So the things on her record is chemical.
Yeah, I was diagnosed with contact dermatitis due to chemical exposure. I mean, that's what it says on my medical record.
As well as the chemical bronchitis.
Yes.
Right.
So, they gave me all kinds of medication, did testing, blood work. This was, right when it happened, I got the skin issues. So what's happening is I get blisters and they run their course, and then they scar and it comes back. So they're saying it's systemic, and they're sending me to a few specialists. They actually they're testing my genes because they think maybe, I don't know which one it is, vinyl chloride. I'm not a chemist or a scientist, but
it's okay.
Something like, it gets into your adipose tissue.
Okay.
Am I saying that right? So they're thinking, this is like stuck inside somewhere, and that's why it's coming out. When it rains, I go outside, I get blisters. Or if I take a shower,
And these are things that this didn't happen to you before.
No.
Right.
No,
so this
never.
You're now getting these blisters, and you mentioned you have some photos. We'll make sure we put some up for folks to be able to see it as well.
Yes.
So you weren't having these issues before.
No.
Now you're getting blisters, skin issues, diagnosed with chemical bronchitis. Even the skin issues, they're diagnosing it as chemical, because of chemical exposure.
Yes. And that's not even to mention the mental anguish.
Oh yeah.
That I've gone through. If someone told me 3 months ago today that tomorrow your life is going to change forever, I would not have believed them. Because, tomorrow will be the 3-month anniversary of them destroying our town.
And so it seems to me, and we can kind of transition into talking about the testing a little bit. So your doctor seems concerned about some of this stuff if they're having, potential testing of genes and getting into tissues and this sort of thing. You actually have a prescription here for urine testing for vinyl chloride, but in addition to that, urine testing for benzene and phosgene.
Yes.
I've heard about some benzene testing being done. I haven't heard of any phosgene testing being done. No. And this is actually through Mercy Health too.
Yes, we raised. I raised the stink when I went down.
Yeah, I guess. Well, let's talk about that, and then we'll get into kind of the specifics of testing. So, how I know you've talked with Jordan a little bit about this, but for folks who didn't see that, what was that process like of trying? You wanted to get a vinyl chloride test.
The process was asking the same question over and over and over and getting little bits, increments from each time I asked the question. Mm-hmm. I played really stupid when I was down there. They kept on giving me the same thing. The CDC, there's a time frame that this is supposed to be, in our urine. Mm-hmm. Well, people test them positive for it, so obviously there's no time frame. Mm-hmm. We're still being exposed. I talked to the Columbia County toxicologist. Mm-hmm. I talked to so many chemists and toxicologists. They threw up vitamin B12. They threw up shampoos, deodorants. Me smoking a half a pack of cigarettes a day, which is in the nanograms, you would have to smoke 20 packs of cigarettes a day.
To test positive.
To test positive, even at any level. That's not even saying what, the reporting level was 0.5. Mm-hmm. 2 months out, the EPA changed that and lowered it down to a 0.2. Mm-hmm. That's all on camera, him saying that. Mm-hmm. So there's still... there's people testing now as high as 0.9.
Right. Yeah, and that's I spoke with resident Chrissy Ferguson yesterday, and hers was in the 0.9. It was the highest I had seen.
Yes.
It doesn't surprise me, unfortunately, when she works close to the tracks. She was close to it. Her backyard is sulfur run, essentially. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, she's been able to stay away from there for now. But she spends a lot of time in town because of her work.
Yes.
And just like many other people who are, whether they're staying in town every day at night or not, they're still having to come here for work. Kids having to come for school, things like this. So
when I talked to the toxicologist, we have to get
and this
tested.
is from Columbia County.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
we have to, and this is just not them. This is everybody that I talked to. We have to get tested more than once. Mm-hmm. This store's in our fat. This store's in our fat. I'm kind of a bigger guy. So we might test 0.5 today, mm-hmm. and tomorrow go take the same exact test and test at 0.9. It depends on what our body's releasing.
So piggybacking off of that, we did a news conference yesterday, mm-hmm. and someone there, she actually had a second test.
Okay.
And it was double what it was originally.
Yes.
So,
and these are the vinyl chloride urine.
This is the vinyl chloride. So, and she lives at ground zero, right. Pretty much.
Yeah, and it's tricky because the CDC in their guidelines, I read through some of them yesterday, and I've read through them a bit before. We have like a couple bullet points it was actually from a document that Senator Sherrod Brown's staff had put together for him for a meeting with residents in East Palestine a couple weeks ago. We got the document, and a couple of the points that they outline as to why the CDC is saying for some reason that you shouldn't get this test. A couple of the main points were the data is difficult to interpret. You can say that that's a joke because all of the testing data that has been provided to you all by the EPA, by other federal agencies, has been extremely confusing. Some of these things I'm giving them to chemists with PhDs, and folks like Dr. Welton are looking at them themselves and having to answer questions for people like you all. And even folks like Dr. Welton, other sources I'm talking to are saying this is very confusing. This is taking these experts a lot of time to go through them. So difficult to interpret should not be a reason not to do a test.
So you get the positive, mm-hmm. right? Okay, so he tested positive. Mm-hmm. Doctor says, well, call the toxicologist. So you call the toxicologist. Mm-hmm. They tell you to call...
Poison control.
Poison control. Poison control sends you to CDC. CDC sends you somewhere else. No one is giving us answers to what now?
Mm-hmm.
So now we're positive.
Now what?
Now what?
I went down and took my test results because at first I went to the EPA and they're the ones that gave me the toxicologist's number.
Mm-hmm.
So they sent me over. Did you go to this little thing that they set up? This little, I don't even know what you want to call it, but I go in
Medical
there.
The
clinic.
clinic. All right.
They gave me an attitude like you tested positive for vinyl chloride. It's in the limits. I was like, listen, there is no vinyl chloride that's within what limit? What baseline are you people
Right,
going
right,
off
because
of?
they say that there's no baseline.
Yeah,
That was another thing the CDC was like, well, we don't have a baseline for... It's like, okay, there shouldn't be vinyl chloride in your town. Let's get a baseline of people who don't live close to here and then compare it.
So I'm going to use my high level baseline, and that's what I'm going to use, and we're going to go off of that baseline.
Right.
Is what I'm essentially going to do.
And
Well, someone that lived 2.9 miles away tested positive for vinyl chloride.
Right.
You know, so it's not, and we're talking months
later.
after this happened.
Right.
There was actually a kid because, like I said, they used a cigarette, vitamin B12, water,
Right.
the drinking the water. Well, there was a kid that is in high school, an athlete,
Yep.
that you probably heard about it.
Yep.
So, he tested positive.
Right. 18-year-old kid tested
Yes.
positive for vinyl chloride, not smoking cigarettes.
I'm going to tell you something. He ain't drinking water out of the sink.
Yeah.
Because, they can use that PVC. Does, the plastic bottles that we're using, we don't get no answers.
Right. And another major issue with this too is, to your point, people should be, it's not like the test isn't perfect for a one-time test, right?
No.
To your point, it should be done multiple times over.
$900 a shot.
Well, which is ridiculous though. So like when you mentioned the clinic, right? If there was any sort of plan when this thing happened, which to me at this point it's pretty clear that there was no, there's not a good cleanup plan from the EPA.
Yeah.
I don't know what the purpose of these agencies are if not to have a plan for when things go awry like this. And we've seen it in other places even since then. They clearly don't have a plan. That's a whole other story. But so if they had a real plan and were talking with the right people when this initially happened, when the governor, touted his clinic that he opened, here in East Palestine, the major thing that they, a couple major things they weren't doing were, providing any diagnosis, providing any sort of medications or anything, but they weren't doing any testing.
No.
I think that's what they're doing now is and this is my opinion, they're covering it up because if they would come out now and say, hey, listen, you guys are testing vinyl chloride,
Right.
it's coming out of the ground, it would blow everything that they said for the last 3 months out of the water,
Right.
and they can't do that.
And imagine though if we had the data of, okay, even if we just did it with a couple hundred people in town, you go to that clinic once a week, do a urine test, they go and process the sample, which will take some time. That's fine if it takes some time. Imagine all of the data we would have now if even 100 residents did a urine test once a week from the week after the derailment until now. All of the information we would have, that would not have been that hard to do. I'm sorry, but the resources of the federal government, they can make that happen if they wanted to make it happen.
Right.
They clearly didn't want to make it happen, in my opinion. And now here we are.
My biggest question is when are they going to file for a disaster? Because this is the biggest disaster besides 9/11, maybe the Oklahoma bombing. This is right up there,
Right.
not to the extent,
Right.
but
we don't know.
We
We
don't
don't
know.
know the extent.
Yeah.
Right.
There is so many people that have not even that have tested positive that's not coming forward. There's people that are very sick, and are not speaking out. At 20 years old, I was diagnosed with myasthenia gravis. There's 7 people in the whole world who have the type that I have. I was in a study at the Cleveland Clinic. I'm the only survivor. My life expectancy they gave me was 45. I will be 48 in July. And I fight every day to keep my health. Okay, that's just one little problem. I also have had heart attacks. I have a pacemaker, a defibrillator. I've had back surgery due to medications that I was on that destroyed my bones. So I've beat cancer twice. In a train derailment was gonna do me in. It's I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm fucking scared. I'm pissed.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of it's thing after thing. I'm definitely interested in following up with you all, especially after you do once you do these tests. I'm very curious, especially the phosgene one. We haven't seen that being done before.
I don't even understand what the phosgene is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, phosgene. I mean, phosgene was literally used in I think World War I as like a
mustard gas.
Yeah. It is a chemical byproduct of burned vinyl chloride. It's one of the things that's created. So I'll be very curious to see if that pops up anywhere. I guess unless there's anything else you all want to share,
No,
I really appreciate you all taking the time.
You guys coming in also. You know, I love what you guys are doing, and like I said, I appreciate you guys more than you can imagine. If we don't get our stories out there, and people don't go get tested and stand up, even though that our opinions are different, it don't matter if me and her opinion is different. Right. We're gonna stand beside each other, and we're gonna fight this until we get the way out. And that's all we want. We want the way out.
You guys make me lose sleep at night because I watch you. You know, it's like quiet. Kids are, everyone's, that's my time. I'm like, shoo, let's go.
Well,
that's
thank you for watching.
Yes, all the time.
Thank you all so much. Thank you guys for watching as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.